Yeah, we on the rise, press record, now play. AI tools got me glowing every day. Faceless grind, I'm paving my lane. Me 2 times, yeah, we changing the game. Elevate me to you, vibe is brand new. Built it from scratch, now we teaching you. Hit that sub, let the vision come true. This ain't just
Super chats versus donations versus tips. What YouTube doesn't tell creators about taxes. Super chats, donations, and tips are often treated like the same thing. Viewers call them gifts. Creators call them support. But YouTube and tax authorities call them income. And that disconnect is where most creators get confused, because when something feels like a gift, it doesn't feel taxable, it doesn't feel reportable, and it doesn't feel like something that needs planning. But the moment money flows through a platform, how it's labeled, processed, and reported matters more than how it feels. That's why creators get caught off guard later. Not because they did something wrong, but because no one clearly explained the structure behind the money. In this video, we're going to separate emotion from structure. We'll break down what super chats actually are, how super stickers work, how donations differ from tips, where eligibility and availability matter, what YouTube reports and what it doesn't, when these payments are taxable, and how much creators should realistically set aside for taxes. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what you're earning, how each type of support is treated, and how to avoid surprises down the line. Now let's start at the source of the confusion, with super chats. Because before we talk about taxes, we need to understand what super chats really are and what they are not. Super chats explained. Super chats versus donations versus tips. What YouTube doesn't tell creators about taxes. Let's start by breaking down super chats, because this is where most of the confusion begins. Super chats are a built-in YouTube feature that allows viewers to pay for highlighted messages during live streams and premieres. The key word here is highlighted. Viewers are not sending money directly to you. They are paying YouTube for visibility inside your live chat. That distinction matters. Super chats are processed entirely through YouTube, and the payout flows through Google AdSense, just like ad revenue. That means YouTube is the platform handling the transaction, not you. Because of that structure, super chats are not gifts. They are platform processed payments tied to your channel activity. Super chats only exist when you're live. No live stream, no super chats. They are exchanged for attention, priority, and visibility in the chat. And whenever money is exchanged for a platform feature, it changes how that money is classified. That's why super chats are treated as income, not donations, emotionally supportive or not. And once you understand that structure, everything else in this video starts to make sense. Now that you understand how super chats work, let's move into the next layer, super stickers, and why they feel different, but are treated exactly the same behind the scenes. Super stickers explained. Super chats versus donations versus tips. What YouTube doesn't tell creators about taxes. Now let's talk about super stickers, because this is where creators often assume the rules change. Super stickers work almost exactly like super chats. The difference is not how they function, it's what the viewer sees. Instead of paying to highlight a text message, viewers pay to send animated stickers into the live chat. That's it. From a creator's perspective, the difference is cosmetic. Text versus animation, message versus sticker. But from a tax and policy perspective, there is no difference at all. Super stickers are still processed by YouTube. They are still paid out through AdSense. They are still tied to live channel activity. And because of that, super stickers are still platform processed income. They are not donations. They are not gifts. They are not treated differently because they look fun or playful. The platform structure doesn't change just because the format does. And this is where many creators get caught off guard, because the presentation feels emotional, but the classification is transactional. Once you understand that super chats and super stickers follow the same rules, the next question becomes obvious. If these two are income, what about donations and tips that happen outside YouTube? That's where things finally start to diverge, and that's what we're breaking down next. Super chats versus donations versus tips. What YouTube doesn't tell creators about taxes. Now, this is where the conversation usually shifts, and where a lot of creators feel more confident saying these are donations. Donations are usually handled outside of YouTube. PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee. These platforms feel more personal. There's no highlighted chat message, no animation, no public leaderboard. And because of that, many creators assume the rules are different. But here's the part that matters. Even when a payment feels personal, it can still be income. If money is received because of your content, your stream, or your audience relationship, the tax classification does not magically change just because it happened off-platform. The platform does not determine classification. The purpose does. If someone sends money to support your work, your channel, your live stream, or your content creation, that payment is generally considered earned income, not a personal gift. Calling it a donation does not override how it's viewed by tax authorities. The emotional intent may feel supportive, but the financial structure still matters. And this is exactly why creators need to understand the difference between platform processing and income purpose. Because once you cross that line, the label stops protecting you. Now that we've separated super chats, super stickers, and off-platform donations, the next piece is where things get even more blurred. Tips, and why they're often misunderstood the most. Tips explained. Super chats versus donations versus tips. What YouTube doesn't tell creators about taxes. This is the category that feels the most harmless and causes the most confusion. Tips feel informal. They feel casual. They feel optional. They feel like a simple thank you. But informal does not mean untaxed. If money is sent because you are creating content, because you are live, because you are moderating a community, or because you are providing entertainment or access, then that money is still income. The word tip does not override that. A tip isn't defined by how small it is. It isn't defined by how spontaneous it feels. And it isn't defined by the platform it comes through. It's defined by why it was sent. If someone sends you money as a direct result of your creator activity, even if they call it a tip, even if it's $5, even if it comes through Cash App or Venmo, it is still reportable income in most cases. Tips are often tied to the creator, not the channel. That makes them feel more personal. But that personal feeling does not change the financial reality. The IRS doesn't classify income by vibes. They classify it by purpose. And when tips are connected to your content, your stream, or your presence, they cross the same line as everything else we've talked about. Now that we've broken down super chats, super stickers, donations, and tips individually, the real clarity comes from putting them side by side and seeing what actually makes them different and what doesn't. Super chats versus donations versus tips. Side-by-side comparison. At this point, the differences should be clear, but this is where many creators still get tripped up. Super chats are platform-controlled income. They only exist because YouTube exists. They are processed by YouTube. They are paid out through AdSense. That makes them structured, trackable, and clearly classified as income. Donations are usually off-platform income. They come through PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Patreon, or similar services. They feel more personal. They feel more direct. But the platform they arrive on does not change how they're classified. Tips are informal income. They're often smaller. They're framed as appreciation. They're labeled as just a tip. But informal does not mean exempt. Here's the part that matters. Super chats, donations, and tips feel different, but they are treated the same once money changes hands because of your content or activity. Different delivery. Different psychology. Same tax reality. If money is received because you are creating content, hosting lives, moderating a community, or providing entertainment, it is income. That's the comparison creators need to understand. Not the vibe, not the label, the structure. Eligibility and availability. Super chats and super stickers. To use super chats and super stickers, creators have to meet specific requirements. These features are not automatically available to every channel. First, you must be part of the YouTube Partner Program. That means meeting YouTube's monetization thresholds and maintaining good standing. Second, you must be located in a supported country. Availability varies by region, and not all countries have access to super chats or super stickers. Third, you must follow YouTube's monetization policies and community guidelines at all times. Violations can pause or remove access to these features without warning. And finally, you must maintain an active AdSense account. Super Chat and Super Sticker revenue is processed through YouTube and paid out through AdSense, just like ad revenue. Even when all requirements are met, Availability is not guaranteed forever. Features can be paused, restricted, or removed based on policy changes, regional rules, or account status. This is important to understand because eligibility determines whether you can receive this income at all, and availability determines how stable it actually is. YouTube policies creators must follow. What you can and can't do on stream. YouTube allows super chats and super stickers as monetization tools, but they come with strict rules that creators are responsible for following. First, you cannot promise exclusive outcomes in exchange for super chats. That means no guaranteed shoutouts, no special access, no influence over decisions, and no preferential treatment tied directly to payment. Super chats are for visibility, not control. Second, you cannot encourage spam or pressure payments. Creators are not allowed to repeatedly push viewers to send money, create urgency tactics, or frame super chats as required for participation. Support must always be optional. Third, you cannot treat super chats as donations for legal protection. Calling them donations does not change how YouTube or tax authorities classify them. Super chats are still platform-processed income. They are not charitable contributions, and they do not carry donation-based legal protections. Violating these rules can lead to consequences. That includes feature suspension, loss of super chat access, or broader monetization restrictions. The key takeaway is simple. Super chats are allowed, but they are regulated. And as the channel owner, you are responsible for how they're used, framed, and discussed on your stream. Now that we've covered what YouTube allows and what it doesn't, the next question creators usually ask is this: are super chats actually taxable? And if they are, how much should you be setting aside? Are super chats taxable? The answer creators don't like but need. Yes, super chats are taxable income. This is not a gray area, and it is not dependent on what viewers call them. Super chats are processed by YouTube, paid out through AdSense, and reported as earnings. That makes them income. It does not matter if a viewer says this is a gift. It does not matter if they say this is support. It does not matter if it feels casual or spontaneous. What matters is why the money was sent. If money is received because you are live, creating content, engaging an audience, or operating a monetized channel, then tax authorities classify that money as business income. In the United States, super chats are included in your AdSense totals and are reported on tax forms when thresholds are met. For creators outside the US, local tax laws vary, but the classification principle is the same. Platform-processed creator earnings are income. Super chats are not donations in the legal sense. They are not tax-free gifts, and they are not exempt simply because they come from fans. The risk isn't that creators don't know this. The risk is that many creators realize it too late, after the income has already been spent. Which brings us to the most practical question of all. How much should creators actually be setting aside for taxes? In the next section, we'll break down a simple, realistic way to decide how much to save, without panic, without guessing, and without wrecking your cash flow. How much to set aside for taxes? Now let's talk about the part creators usually avoid. How much to set aside for taxes? Most creators set aside between 20 and 30% of what they earn. That range is not random. It's meant to cover federal taxes, state taxes, if they apply where you live, and self-employment taxes for creators who are not traditional employees. Your exact number may be higher or lower depending on your income level, your location, and whether you have deductions. But here's the important part. Setting aside something is always better than setting aside nothing. The biggest mistake creators make is assuming they'll figure it out later. And later turns into a surprise bill. Planning ahead doesn't mean you're doing taxes early. It just means you're not letting taxes do you. Disclaimer. This is general educational information, not tax advice. Tax rules vary by country, state, and individual situation. For guidance specific to your income, always consult a qualified tax professional or accountant. Support feels personal, but income is structural. Whether money comes in through super chats, super stickers, donations, or tips, the system does not evaluate emotion. It evaluates activity, access, and classification. Creators who understand how the system works avoid surprises. Creators who don't often learn the hard way, at tax time, during audits, or when features suddenly disappear. This isn't about discouraging support. It's about protecting yourself while you grow. When you separate appreciation from accounting, you gain control. And when you understand the structure behind your income, you create stability instead of stress. Clarity protects creativity. If this video helped bring clarity to how super chats, donations, and tips actually work, take a moment to protect your future self. Save this video, share it with another creator who might need it, and make sure you're building with information, not assumptions. More creator breakdowns like this are coming.
Yeah, we on the rise, press record, now play. AI tools got me glowing every day. Faceless grind, I'm paving my lane. Me 2 times, yeah, we changing the game. Elevate me to you, vibe is brand new. Built it from scratch, now we teaching you. Hit that sub, let the vision come true. This ain't